Hello and welcome. Now, here, I thought I would talk about something near and dear to my heart, an example of what is wrong with capitalism, the system we live under, and how it handles welfare. For those of you who don't know, the U.S. Social Security Disability Insurance System is supposed to provide disability when someone becomes disabled. However, there are requirements for work credits that a person must have. These were added in 1978 and are an example of how welfare benefits, disability, things like that in the United States have steadily been chipped away at and made more and more difficult for people who need to receive. An example of this, I'm at the SSDI website on the Social Security Administration.gov webpage. So this is absolutely credible information. No one can, for a moment, contest this. An individual needs generally 40 credits, which adds to 10 years of work. However, younger people, they have different requirements. Now, you'll notice these rules are contradictory and, of course, can easily screw someone. For instance, there's a duration of work table that's entirely reasonable, you might think. 2 years of work at age 30, but age 31 or older, individual needs 20 credits. That's 5 years of work. Now, this immediately becomes problematic when you start looking at some of the recent work duration numbers and consider just for a second what happens when someone goes to graduate school. So they are going for a PhD. They're going for medical education. Someone is going for a PhD or 2 masters back to back. There's a number of ways. Someone could easily go to college till age 21, then do 4 years of grad school, become disabled, and have 1 year of work, 2 years of work, and easily get disqualified. You could have, I was 31, and I spent 5 years in graduate school because I had done a master's. It was supposed to be 2 years and boiled over 3 because research doesn't always work in the timelines you want it to work. And my first lab ran out of money, shut down, no fault of my own. The professor couldn't get grants, so I moved on to another project. And the second project didn't quite get done within 1 year, so I had to do a second year. Didn't have the results from that in time to do it after 1 semester. So there was a second semester, full second year, ended up being on that project to write up the results because they came out right before the end of 1 more semester, where there was no possible way to write things up that quickly. Is it my fault the lab ran out of money and shut down? No. In fact, that is the government's fault for inadequately funding medical research. Very important medical research in, as it happens to be, stem cell biology, regenerative medicine, something that absolutely saves lives. Let me rephrase that. Could absolutely save lives with the cures it could develop, and absolutely saves lives with the cures develop. I guess that's grammatically correct either way. Well, I had money, I got screwed. 3 years of grad school then. However, because of issues with the school shutting that program down, lack of alumni networks, lack of family support, I was not able to get right into the workforce, was stuck in a rural area for a while. And when I moved out of that rural area, my degree was too old to work in my field, so I ended up having to go back to school 2 more years, 5 years of school. Got disabled 31 from long COVID from the government mishandling a pandemic. What happens? There was no way I could have met the necessary work requirements. While it's only 2 years at age 30 on one of the tables, at 31 it's 20 credits. That's 5 years between being in college to just about when I turned 22, 21, 22. I actually was 21 when I graduated. Some people are 22 when they graduate. That's very typical age. I was actually one of the younger people graduating college. And then being in grad school 5 years out of 9, that means there's no way that I could have gotten 5 years of work credits. It's impossible. Not to mention, at one point I was working, not even earning the full number of work credits because I wasn't getting paid enough. Because you have to have met a certain amount of income, and it's in a year. So if you start work near the end of a year, $7,240. So if you start work near the end of a year, or you go back to school partway through a year, stuff like that, or you only able to find part-time work, you can easily get screwed. For, I believe, part of one of the calendar years, some part-time work, then moving, throw in all this, that after I got out of the rural area and I found I couldn't get work in my field, I went and took an EMT course and retrained as an EMT because I wasn't about to go back to grad school at that point. I was just trying to get work experience, so I did that for a little bit, worked, and then managed to get into a graduate program that I never thought I would have been able to get into, which is why I went to grad school. So that was another like 3 months out of work, and that doesn't help either. Although I think I actually got the full work credits for that year because of the way the calendar works out and how much I was getting paid as an EMT. But regardless, it does not change the fact that people get screwed all sorts of ways. And I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about the huge number of people who, let's say they're in an MD program. They're 23. They don't have a single year work experience because they went undergrad med school. Then they get disabled. They get hit by a car or something. Disabled, they can't work, they can't finish school, can't do their career. Can they get disability? No, not according to these rules. Someone is disabled in undergrad, they get a disease, a genetic disease they know they had. I mean, some things don't kick in till, let's say they're 19, 20, 21, become disabled. Then can they work? Can they get disability? No, not if they weren't earning the full amount while they were in undergrad. They may have been working, even work study, but not earning enough credits because of the rules and how much money they have to make. They could have been working in college, let me repeat this, and going to college to make something of themselves, get disabled, not eligible for disability. This is the problem with capitalism. The rich control everything. They have all the power, and what do? They proceed to chip away at benefits programs. They proceed to set rules that disqualify people. They make incredibly long waiting lines for some programs so that even if someone's eligible, they might be waiting 9 months, a year, years. For instance, housing assistance is infamous for having people who are eligible for it sometimes wait as much as 8 years to get housing assistance in some states. That's insane. So they can say, technically, we have help for people. No, you don't. And is it someone's fault that they can't get a job? No. You may be used to the propaganda claiming it is, but the availability of jobs is based on the conditions of the economy. It's based on capitalism and where they're going to put the jobs. For instance, if they send the factories all in an area to China and there's no jobs in that area anymore, it's not the people's there's fault that they're suddenly unemployed. That happens. In fact, the rural area I was stuck in was an area that was deindustrialized, kind of Rust Belt situation. You used to have more jobs in the past. Jobs got sent to China. That meant that after I finished grad school and I was stuck in that area because family wouldn't help me move somewhere there are more jobs. And I was very frugal in grad school, and I got not a lot of financial support during it. I saved up what I could, but it's hard to save money while you're in school. School is an expense after all, even if you're working some, like I was during school. Though I was getting paid stipends for stuff I was doing in school, so it wasn't even enough to get, I think, any work credits. I would have to double check the exact numbers, maybe 1 or 2. It doesn't change things. But regardless, does someone are they responsible for the factories leaving their city, county, state? No. Are they responsible for something like the Great Recession, which directly impacted the jobs market I had to deal with? No. Are people responsible for becoming disabled. Most of the time, no. They get hit by a car, they develop a genetic disease. What happens to me happens, and they get infected by a virus that leaves them disabled. That was going around the whole country. And in my particular case, I had a roommate who didn't quarantine in place, came back sick from a business trip because they were an entrepreneur, gave me COVID a second time, and I got long COVID after. Was any of that my fault? No. In fact, I had repeatedly told this roommate, you could get COVID more once, and I tried to explain to him he wasn't going to leave. My only option would have been to call the cops to kick him out when he came back like this, since he violated laws crossing multiple state borders coming back from business trip when he knew he had COVID. Short of something extreme like that, which I wasn't one to do, there was no way to protect myself. In fact, I got stuck, per the rules of my school, quarantining in the apartment, not allowed to leave it, so I was stuck around this guy. And based on incubation periods, I know I managed to avoid infection for about 5 days. I had to quarantine for 7, and I started showing symptoms on the last day of quarantine. That would not have happened if they hadn't quarantined me with the guy. I could have left after 3 days and been fine, or 4. It was 5. It was on the 5th day I must have been infected based on how things work. So I was careful enough to avoid for multiple days getting infected from this guy I was stuck in a very cramped apartment with. But again, none of this was my fault. None of this is the fault of people who suffer. And capitalism will always do this. It is cruel. It is merciless. And the best you can hope for is something like a social democracy, like you see in Denmark, like you see in Finland. But these systems are always under attack from the ruling class, from the rich, from the business owners, the banks. They will always try and attack welfare programs, even where they're generous, even where taxes are high on the rich. They will try and roll all that back. I believe it was Marx himself said that these social democracy type things, but he didn't use that term back then because social democracy then meant something different than it does now. But these kinds of generous programs exist at the mercy, at the benevolence. I forget what the exact word was used, but they're at the forbearance of the capitalist class, and they can destroy these programs anytime, and they often do, which is what's going on all around the world today with austerity being pushed in country after country. So it's something to think about, and it's something to consider. Do you want to be in a situation where you have to deal with tables like this, where people get screwed out of disability, deserve it, where you have someone do what I'm doing, where I'm desperately trying to create a YouTube channel to get money to survive, because I can't get disability, even though I got disabled, even though I was working very hard to make something of myself, because of things beyond my control, from a research lab running out of money to a pandemic disabling me. The research lab running out of money helping keep me in grad school that extra year that made it impossible to get enough work credits during the time I was out of school. Otherwise, like, I wasn't out of school enough years before the age I got disabled that I could have ever possibly gotten the necessary work credits. It was physically impossible. Would have had to earn like a full year of work credits while I was in school. And that's assuming that there wasn't actually a period where a calendar year between when I graduated and when I got work. That is, you graduate in like May, and then I didn't get work till the next calendar year, so I didn't get any work credits that year because job search and the Great Recession and weak jobs market. So it wouldn't have worked out that way, even if I'd worked a year in school work credits, which actually I may have earned a year's work credits one of those years. Doesn't matter. I was screwed anyways. So just think about this. Consider this. Is this the kind of country, is this the kind of system you want to live under? Or maybe we can do something better. Democratic socialism, perhaps, which has never existed for more than a couple years in any country in the world. I say a couple years because Chile started going down that route and the CIA tried a coup. It failed. So they assassinated people who had blocked the first coup attempt, and then they did another coup. Pumping all the while anti-communist, anti-socialist propaganda into the military. And this was democratic socialism. So an elected socialist government that maintained democratic institutions and tried to nationalize industries to take power away from the very rich, with a democratic mandate to do this. The largest block of voters, a plurality of voters, voting to support this. In fact, it might have been even a majority. I would have to check what the Chilean election results were. They had a mandate to do this. according to the rules of a democratic bourgeois democracy, and yet they were cooed by the CIA, because in no situation has the US ever allowed something like democratic socialism to exist. But we can do better. As a planet, as a country, if you live in the US, the only way socialism will ever succeed is if it turns the US, the country that has destroyed every socialist country that's ever tried to exist, socialist itself. The CIA can't go cooing people if there is no CIA doing that, because the CIA is the intelligence agency of a country. If the US were to go socialist, they would not be being ordered to do that, just to give you an example. And as a democratic socialist, I say the way to do that is through elections. There are others who will disagree with me about that, but anything else is guaranteed to just get you killed. So it's the whole way you can do it, because otherwise you try to do revolution, they will murder you, the people with power. You got to use elections. Anyways, I wish you all the best. Take care. Think about the things I've said. I look forward to, you'll see a text bit here, leftism. I'm going to be doing a video on what is leftism, what are some of the 600 different versions of leftism exist, because it's a lot of diversity within the left. Very many ideas have never been tried, because there wasn't just the leftism of the Soviet Union. There was 50 zillion different ideas of how to do a socialist society. Most of them have never been tried. And of course, the ones that have suffered constant CIA interference and constantly been on the back foot of being in power in countries that were on the weaker side of a geopolitical divide. Like the Soviet Union was never as wealthy or populous as the bloc of capitalist US, Western Europe countries that absolutely had the advantage from day one. There was no way that the Cold War could have ever gone any way other than it did. And that's only one type of socialism, and a very centralized government authority, high government authority system. I hesitate to call it authoritarianism, as some individuals do, because that's become a dirty word. But a system with strong authority, and a system that degenerated into oligarchy on top of that. Anyways, I wish you all the best. Take care. And be kind to yourselves.